don't know. We haven't been doing the intro, but tonight we have I don't know, tonight, whatever, whenever you listen to this, we have a new person with us, Double D. And when I think of Double D, I think of Double D from Ed, Edd and Eddy.
Oh.
just throwing that out there. Just throwing that out there.
I'm trying to think of which character he was. It was like a Nickelodeon cartoon with three kids.
Yeah, I
think
he's
buck teeth. Was that me?
No, I think he's the one that had the hat, right?
I think you're right. Which one was the one that had the best friend Plank? Because it wasn't that on that show too. Do you remember that? It was this board with a face on it, and it was like his best friend Plank. I think it was. I think that's from that show. My daughters used to watch it back in the day.
Yeah. His name is Johnny 2x4.
Oh, Johnny 2x4. Thank you. Good to know. There was just a song about it. I think my best friend Plank. Steve, you didn't think I was going to be singing on this, did you?
I didn't, but I feel blessed.
What a great time in children's TV. That and Ren and Stimpy, excellent shows. Excellent shows.
Stimpy, you fat bastard.
I had sort of hoped that Dean would, and I just tried to prod him a little bit earlier today. I was hoping he'd have some kind of guitar intro and outro for us for the podcast, but it didn't happen. But you know what? That's okay.
Maybe next time I could do a Wayne's World intro and outro for you with I could plug in and just. I mean, I got the equipment here, so.
See, I've only ever seen it in the background. I've still, I don't actually know that you use it, just that it's there for show.
It's really good backdrop, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
But that's not true, because you've seen my little YouTube thingy-bopper.
Oh, that is true.
So I have proof. There's proof out there.
I did go watch that. That's right.
Yeah, there's proof. So I know how to use those things.
Yeah.
Nice try. Gosh, I'm a guest on a podcast, and I've got to prove my credibility. Whew. Boy,
no, you already had the street cred coming in.
So what topics do you guys usually like to talk about with your guests? Do you like your guests to bring up the topics? I mean, do you want to quiz me? Am I in a hot seat?
I think every time we've had a full-time guest, the guest has always led off by throwing something out there. And I say that because we haven't really had a true guest before. But
yeah, and what we've learned is left up to Steve and I. We'll talk about Star Trek.
Well, have you guys talked about our favorite topic? Have you guys talked about practicing amateur psychology without a license?
We do that a lot here.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, that's
otherwise known as ridicule and judgment. I think it's called ridicule and judgment in dark circles, right?
But it's still an interesting topic.
Let's do it. Yeah, it sounds like you got something specific you want to chat about.
I don't know. I mean, so I think it sounds like a really bad thing to do, but I've really found out that it's incredibly therapeutic. It is incredibly therapeutic. And especially Steve and I do it all the time, because we're at the same places to work and things like that. Especially when you kind of ended up with not everyone can be as awesome as us. You know what I mean? That's the whole thing we throw back at each other that kind of helps us take ourselves down a peg and realize, okay, wait a minute here. This is turning into judgment and we know we're not perfect, So that kind of grounds you. But I mean, if you think about that topic, it is ridicule and judgment, but it's also venting, which is valuable for the human psyche, I think, to some degree.
And trying to put some sense of order to the chaos in which we are often exposed. And generally the chaos by some, for lack of a better term, some nut job we work with. It's why is this person doing this? Why is this person continually crapping on everybody else's work, and something like that?
Yeah. So Ethan, do you use that? Do you do that at all? Do you ever participate in that?
So yeah, I'm actually interested in why people do the things that they do, and so I do look very closely at the new thing that I like organizational behavior, to throw some buzz terms out there.
Yep.
Organizational behavior, something I like. The new thing that I've decided I like is behavioral statistics, which is psychology and math.
Yep.
I mean, those two things go together. So,
Yep.
But yeah, it's, and then when I do work with people, it's just, I mean, we just have a conversation about things and listen to the things that they say. And then, a big thing that I've found in our space, especially the level that we're at, is it's very helpful to have people that can relate to what it is you're saying, like that you're experiencing, having those shared experiences, and then maybe having something to offer on top of that. So I found that for people on our level, you can throw a bunch of like, these are the things that I've done, and they can do with that what they want, right? And usually it's like it's a positive experience. But with people that are not on the same level that we are, it becomes this weird like manipulation almost thing.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about it a lot lately because Steve and I have been doing it for years, right? But I kind of feel like there's also value to it. I mean, you do tend to think of it as, oh yeah, we're just ranting, and that kind of stuff. But especially in our job where it's a job we're dealing with people, you kind of have to understand what makes them tick and what might be driving them to motivate them. And even Steve and I, we had a little quick meeting about a person we were having difficulty dealing with and stuff like that. And yeah, it was a practicing amateur psychology without a license type of session, but it was meant to be, okay, how do we successfully work with this person?
Yep.
And you could call that manipulation, or you could just call it, oh, hey, I need a strategy to turn this to be less of a conflict and to be something that actually has a successful outcome.
Right, because what we're doing now is not working.
Right,
We got to come up with something else, because it's just, we're circling the drain, and the vortex seems to be moving faster. We've got to try something else rather than paddling with the current.
Right.
Go
ahead.
Do you guys ever feel like you're the Harlem Globetrotters and you're playing the opposing team? That's kind of what I meant by like manipulation, because like that's the thing is like it can feel that way, but it's like the problem is there's such a big chasm between your understanding and their understanding that you can't do anything other than try to architect a way for them to understand what it is you're getting at.
Well, I don't know if I follow the Globetrotter analogy so much, is because sometimes I do think that even though it's ranting and venting and strategizing how to get that situation to work or that relationship to work, I sometimes end up learning out of it, like, oh, okay, this is a clash. Part of the reason for the clash is my own personality traits. And I try to be humble enough to realize I know I got some personality traits that aren't always positive, and Steve helps talk me off the ledge in some of those cases, and doesn't necessarily point out my flaws, but gives me ideas that helps me realize, okay, maybe I could go about this another way. I try to hide my flaws at work. I think at home, my flaws come out more. I'd be interested if do you guys find yourself only doing this at work, or do you find yourself doing it outside of work?
Oh,
cue the phrase persona.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Right.
I was just gonna say
the persona. All
yes,
right,
my favorite topic.
Yes. And like a moth to the flame, here we go again.
Can we just say see episode 2? Wasn't it 2 or 3 or something like that? 1?
Yeah, it was episode 1. But it had surfaced in like every other episode, so there's a sprinkling of it.
Yeah, we talk about it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've talked about this. So at least for me, I'm the same. Like I have different tiers of content that people can see, but as far as like the way that I am, it's the same.
Yeah.
All the time, which I think bothers a lot of people in general.
Well, Why does it bother them though? I mean, I like people who are an open book. Assuming the book's the book I like to read, mind you. But what you see is what you get is kind of to me, that's an endearing quality, because then I know they're a straight shooter. I know what I'm going to get. I know what I'm risking when I'm in a relationship with those guys. And you know what I mean? And in a relationship, I don't mean, that deep, but I mean like, okay, if I say this person is going to get torqued and I'm going to get an adverse reaction, so I don't know. I value that. I don't feel like I can do it at home, because I feel like to do that, you need a cohort. You need a like-minded individual. Sadly, I'm the dad. I'm all alone. Normally that might be your wife, but even that, you got some differences there. So
I don't know. Jess is pretty adamant that she has different personalities for a friend group, work group, even on the podcast, and then with her family, like her kids, that there are different kind of personas that she wears. She even had claimed one time, I can't remember the episode number, but she had different pajamas that she would wear around different groups of people as well.
That was awesome.
So we call them persona pajamas.
Pajamas, yeah, classic. Oh, but I would say I have a definite different persona around my family, because I fall into problem solving mode, even when it's not wanted.
Right.
I know I fall into that, but I don't necessarily fall into problem solving mode at work sometimes. And sometimes I'm like, I'm going to stay in my lane, bro.
Right.
And the persona thing, like, it came from me, like, so from my perspective, people try and BS other people all the time, right? And so I was walking around being like, everybody can see through that, like we're just letting you behave this way and think that you're outsmarting everybody. So from my perspective, I was like, you're full of crap and everybody knows it, and you're a D-bag, and it's amazing that we all let you do this. And then I had someone tell me, they were like, this thing that you do where you can like tell how people are, like, that's not something I can do. That's a separate skill that you have. And I was like, wait, what? So then I realized, I'm like, oh, am I the weird one? I'm totally the weird one. It explains a lot. It explains like why it just, all of it fascinates me, right?
I don't know if I have different. Well, I think it's hard for me to say. I think the only difference in my persona between work, family, friends is potentially my German temper. I think I get, I feel like I mostly do a good job hiding at work, do a good job hiding it with like extended family and friends. With my family at home, sometimes I just get stressed out and it slips out. It's not like I'm a madman beating people or anything like that, but there's an edge to my voice, and sometimes I do yell a little bit. Maybe it's because I have 4 kids. I'm getting old and getting stressed. I don't know. I think I had more patience when I was younger than I do now, and I'm more tired. But that's about the only difference in my persona that I can really think of when I think about it off the top of my head right now. I guess I've never really sat down and analyzed it that much.
I think it's because you're busy herding cats all day.
Yeah.
I'm one of them. and then you get to the end of the day and you're like, great, this is going to be peace. And then maybe the family has a little
more
out on
herding
the prairie,
cats.
more cats, and you're like, not again, and then you lose it.
Yeah, I'm off the clock. Come on.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. It's I could see there being some different. I do feel like because doesn't everybody at work, I mean, maybe with the exception of Ethan, try to put on a more professional face, and there's things you can and can't say due to HR rules and things like that, where with your family and friends, you might have a little more of a comfort level. Not necessarily like you're saying things that are horribly offensive that will get you in trouble with HR, but I mean, the standard is a little lower, and the acceptance of who you are and the grace they give you is a little bit more. You know what I mean? So
You built up the creds to the point where Ethan can say something like, "That's what she said."
right,
That's one of your
right.
favorite. That's one of your favorites.
Right.
I said that too in a meeting. It was just me and 2 HR people from our company, and I said that to them in a meeting because I've known them for like 10 years. It's very, very different now.
Okay, so we're delving down a path that I have a little story for.
Sweet.
I was in a meeting. Steve was in that meeting too. Was it 2 weeks ago now? I think it was about 2 weeks ago. Maybe it was last week. Where I was meeting with business people, and we were talking about a project or whatever, and lamenting that we didn't have all the members of our team there. And I think I was talking about, hey, our capacity and that kind of stuff. And one of the guys that was gone, his name is Peter. And I just happened to blurt out, "Yeah, we want our Peter back." And it was out of my mouth, not even in the cartoon bubble anymore. And I could feel my skin turning different shades of red. I think I handled it okay, and everyone on the phone was laughing. There was no HR person there, but I was just kind of like, I cannot believe I just said that. That could be my biggest flub of stepping on my tongue I've ever done. It was hilarious, but if HR were on, I don't know, they would probably not have loved that. So
I don't know. That was you weren't
obviously a
saying
flub.
You weren't saying it intentional, and you weren't. It wasn't a stretch where you were like, "Oh, I'm going to fit this phrase in, and it'll
True.
be funny." It just kind of came out.
And then I was like, crud.
I attribute some of that stuff to, like, some of that's content, right? Like, you can't.
Yeah.
Not everybody gets to see all the content that you make all the time.
Right.
For me, the first place that I went from a professional perspective, there was no dress code. The CEO he kind of like, he said some hilarious, like, inappropriate things, not like, they're just, I think one example was at this place, we had some developers from China, and I don't know why he was talking about bringing in, I don't know, he was basically making a really bad joke about these developers that should be doing gardening work for him instead of developing. It was bad because it was like, we're there, and he says that, and everybody at the meeting was like, "Yikes, dude! Mm-hmm. Yikes!" You could see everybody like physically move back in their chair.
Yeah. Was he a different age bracket too, potentially, or was he similar age?
He's probably Gen X, like an early Gen X.
Okay. Because I do notice a difference in two things the older you get. And I'm not saying Steve and I are close in age. He's a little older than me, but we're pretty close in age, I think.
A little. Yeah,
it's a little.
You throw him up, I'll knock him out of the park.
We're in the same decade. We're in the same decile or decade of our ages, aren't we? So,
yep.
I think at least I'm noticing, I think the older you get, the less filter you have. And then the older you get, they were saying those things back then. I notice it from my parents, especially. My dad says some things right now that I cringe at.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not meaning it in a malicious way. It's just that's the way they used to talk. But and I don't necessarily even mean that I cringe at because I wouldn't say them. Not like, oh, they're super offensive right now that he would get himself in trouble. People would just cringe at it. They'd just like, oh my God, why'd you say that? And I am finding myself the older I get, sometimes I'm noticing that the synapses ain't necessarily firing between the old noodle and the mouthpiece. You know, like that instance where it was a slip up, but it's like, that would never have happened to me 10 years ago. It would never have happened to me 10 years ago.
I say things that aren't meant to be funny, but come out funny sometimes. So one example is we were all at this place together. This was probably before Steve joined. So this maybe even before Double D joined. But we had one quality assurance person that we were working with on the very first project that we did. So we're all in this room. I think we were doing sprint planning. And so she's sitting next to me. She was really nice. She didn't like white chocolate. She did not work for our company. She worked for the company that we were at. And so we're sitting there and she's got this picture of a kid on her laptop as her background. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, is that your kid? And I was like, I wanted to make sure before I gave a compliment to a child that was hers.
Right.
She apparently the way that it came out of my mouth was like, ugh, is that your kid?
Read the tone. Oops.
Oh.
She was great because there was another time where it was like she hated milk chocolate too, and I brought in the Lindor chocolate balls, and I brought in a variety pack, and I'm like, this color's regular chocolate, this color's milk chocolate, like don't get this color. I had mixed them up. so it made it look like I was totally,
trying to assassinate her.
Trying to assassinate. And I was like really genuinely trying to steer her away from the milk chocolate, but had just gotten it wrong.
She's like, this guy's just sprinting to hell.
Yeah. She's also the one. So if you remember the giant peanut M&M jar.
Yeah.
So she's the one that sat over there before they put all the QA people together, and she drew a hand. They had just like a little hole cut out in the peanut M&M jar and drew like a hand on it with a no hand, don't dig your hand in. This was before COVID, by the way.
Right. And someone thought, oh, take a handful. That's what I would have thought. Oh.
This reminds me of my own foible. I was talking to a guy, Eric, colleague of mine, who sat across the cube aisle from me. He was my scrum master. And then our director came to talk to us. So the two of them were sitting there looking at me, and somehow the subject of candy came up. And I don't remember what I was saying, but I was talking about, I wanted to say something about Reese's Peanut Butter Cups and Reese's Pieces. And I merged the two and I said Reese's Penis. And the two of them looked at me. I closed my mouth. I looked from one to the other, and I just turned and sat down at my desk. But I never heard the end of it for it would come up every month or so. It was like,
did they ask you how Reese was?
Yeah. That was a bad one.
I've told you the Cupid story, I think, but so we had a guy that worked with us on one of the teams, and he wasn't very well liked, and I have a plan on doing a whole series on this and many other characters that existed. But so anyway, it's like this particular area was with the product group, and it was a little bit of a bro place, and to be fair, there was 4 people there. So I spent some time there. There was 2 main product people. There was a woman who had been in the military and very much in the good old boys club, obviously had to deal with that for a long time.
Yep.
And then this guy. And so he answers the phone one day in front of all of us, rude, first of all, because we're sitting in a pit. So he's facing us. We're just at a big table and he's facing us. So his phone rings and he answers it in front of us. So first I'm like, okay, that's rude and weird that you're not getting up and leaving. And then he's like, we hear, oh, is this for Cupid? And we're all just holding our laughter. We're like, what is happening? So he gets off the phone and I'm like, who's Cupid? And it's his little dog that him and his wife got. And so from then on, we called that guy Cupid every single day because he answered the phone. So it's a little bit of the bro culture or the good old boys club, like. And he knew. I think the minute he said it, he knew that he'd messed up.
Oh, jeez.
Yep. He did not last long, and that's not because of us calling him Cupid.
Right.
So I am curious. One of the thoughts that I've had. So you and Steve are, what I'm hearing from you guys talk about, that you like to let people kind of vent and have these bitch sessions maybe about things. I seem to remember two people when they first started at the place that we were at together who had a problem with a time when we would all get together once a week, and sometimes it turned into a little bit of a bitch session, and they were concerned about the kind of complaining that was taking place.
You mean the prior place to where we were?
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
I know where you're pointing at here.
Oh, if it wasn't clear, I'm pointing at you two. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I mean, I get what you're saying. So I think here's the distinction I'm going to make, and you can call it BS or not. The distinction I'm going to make is, I think when Steve and I do it, it's a small group, and it's not like we're talking about something that both of us are intimately involved with. So I think that the line that we're trying to straddle is, okay, we both already know this thing. We can relate to both sides to the issue. We can talk about it because it just happened to both of us, and we can share and diagnose psychologically, of course, and come up with solutions, right? Where in that giant meeting, we're airing dirty laundry in front of everybody, and we might be tainting the jury pool. You know what I mean? And I think that was kind of what our beef was. Well, that, and it often went on kind of for a long time.
Some people talked quite a bit.
Right,
yeah.
right.
It was a bit of a filibuster.
It was.
Right.
It
But in the
was.
same breath, I mean, that way, you know, you kind of, you're giving people you're giving the entire freaking team predispositions against people, potentially. Maybe we were a little harsh about that. I think probably more of it was because we were just annoyed sitting there listening to certain people vent all the time.
I think my issue was, it was a 30-minute meeting.
Time.
There would be 12 plus people in the room, which, if you do the math, you know, you've got 2 to 3 minutes to give your kind of update. And when somebody would take 12 to 15,
like, where's my time?
and which can happen once in a while. Like, if they are legitimate updates, like, hey, everybody needs to know this. But if I rolled in and started complaining about something about which you guys have no knowledge of and will never encounter, why do I need to know this? Because this is just therapy for you, and I'm not here for that.
And I think that was the thing. Like, I'm pretty sure that was like within week 8. Like, you guys had not been there for it was within 3 months that you guys had been experiencing that. So I think you guys were both still pretty new.
It could be, yeah.
I thought it was good though. I mean, it was good because you guys were like, hey, I want to talk about this, and so we talked about it, and I was definitely like, yes, I hear you. And then, at least from what I saw, because I'd seen it ebb and flow already. Like, I'd seen that would happen and then it would go away. And so that's kind of where I was like, yeah, we'll see what happens. And then, you know, we'll get on people if it doesn't start to go away, which I think it did.
Well, here's a funny thing. In hindsight, now that Steve and I have that from that prior gig, I think we would both look back on it and pine for the glory days of that project, and even those large venting sessions. You know what I mean? Because truthfully, if I look back at that one, I feel like there were a lot less things to truly bitch about than we had at this current gig. And even, I guess, you know, no place is perfect, right? I mean, that, as a consultant, you know that. You learn that pretty quickly. So.
Yeah, the place that we went to is very interesting, right? Because it felt in the moment while we were there that things were like really bad, and these people were out of this world bonkers at times.
Yeah.
And then we go to the next place and we're like, oh, those guys are awesome. Can I go back and talk
Yeah.
to those guys? Like,
right. What did I just step into?
yeah, I know, right?
You know?
This next place can't be that bad. Oh, yes, it can.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
next client is saying, hold my beer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. Wonderful. And I would say, like Dean mentioned, it's usually him and I who we test the waters with each other. Like, are you thinking what I'm thinking on this one? And then it's like, you know, the other person comes right back, and you immediately know within, you know, 20 seconds, yes, you're both thinking the same thing, and then it sort of goes from there.
Right. And I would say,
I'm not broadcasting my complaints. I'm just checking with my sensei.
Yeah.
Double D.
and I would say that it's not 100% of the time that we're on the same page either. I'd say there's the odd 10 or maybe 20% of the time where one person says, oh, I see it this way, and then the other one's like, oh, okay, I didn't think of it that way. So it does help from that perspective. It's not 100% ranting. It's only 80%.
Yeah, it's always good to bounce ideas like that off other people and find out. It's like that thing where it's like, am I the drama? Like, I'm not the
Right.
drama. Am I the drama? So you just gotta find
Right.
out, like, if
Yeah.
it's you. And then if you get a bunch of like, yeah, you're not thinking the right way, you're like, all right, now
Right.
I'll gather myself back up here.
Yeah, I really try to practice humility in that, because you never know.
Yeah.
You never know. I as my wife often tells me, I'm not perfect.
That's nice of her to provide
Yes.
that feedback.
Yeah, she brings me
unsolicited.
down to earth
Yeah.
every single day.
Is she also the one behind all of the let's wear hats to work for a week ideas?
She's not at all. That's purely Steve and I type of stuff. You know?
Which, by the way, we had a watershed moment today, I noticed. So I did my big commute. I'm back home.
mhm.
I fired up my work laptop again just to make sure it's ready to go for tomorrow. And I see a chat from our team about the failure, I believe on Dean's part, to provide a song of the day today, because
Oh,
we
yeah.
passed the baton. And this one guy, he's at the client. He's never said anything, never, not a peep. And he chimes in like at the end of the day and is like, what happened to the song of the day? Did it die? He's like, all right, I'm going to pick it up. And he's never been a part of it. Like, he's
Right.
never said one word. And he
Totally.
brought it up today. And I felt like that was total vindication.
Oh yeah. It's
of-
like, here I come to save the day, and he's never been on it.
yes.
So
Did you
there's
see
other
that I
people
post-
watching. I didn't even know he was watching that chat.
Did you see that I posted that?
Yeah, I did see the.
Okay,
Yeah,
I thought
that was
I thought we
that-
were like on the same page mysteriously all of a sudden.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what?
yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's good that other people are seeing that.
Yes.
And now I feel horrible because it's been like a week that we haven't had that song of the day. Like I
Oh,
forgot.
really?
I think Peter handed it off to me on Friday last week, and I just
That could
totally
be. We've been
totally dropped
busy.
them off.
Usually I am all over that. Like, where's the song? And well, I was remote all week, so I had other fish to fry. But
Yeah, it wasn't stuck on your plate, Steve. It was stuck on mine. So
yeah, but usually I'm like, hey, who's got it today? Come on.
that's true. You're usually the reminder, the conscience of everyone. Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to point out that the team building exercises that Double D has been fostering were paying big dividends today, as what was previously a silent member of the community was all over it. It was great.
That's always the best, when you get someone who actively doesn't participate or has just never needed to, who then like all of a sudden starts to come out of their shell.
Yep.
Yeah, that's when you're getting to that performing part of the team building stuff.
Yeah, and it could be that he hasn't participated because he was never really invited,
Right.
but he was part of our channel.
Yeah.
And so it was really, for lack of a better term, gratifying.
Yeah, I think so we did borrow something from another client too, which was not even just this song of the day for this one team. Is now there's a now playing channel there, which is just anyone can put any music in there.
That was the one before. They had that too, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that idea was deliberately stolen from them.
Yeah.
I think the song of the day. I don't think that's what we did at the other place, but
No.
but that was our kind of way of getting it in, just at least for this one team. And even that's got people that are contributing that I didn't even know listen to music for that matter. You know, to be honest with you, and it's a variety of stuff. You get a good idea of. You can tell about people by the types of music they listen to some degree too. I mean, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily making a judgment call about their personality, but hey, that's one thing that I know about that person that maybe I have in common with them, or I can talk about with them that's outside of work. So you can build a relationship beyond just, hey, did you get your job done yet? You know, that type of stuff.
Yep.
Do you know the person that we work with that loves K-pop?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you would never guess it.
No, you wouldn't. And one of my favorite things was we had, it was for an award ceremony that we had downtown, and they had tickets to a K-pop show and left that ceremony to go to the concerts.
I think I remember that.
That's awesome.
Funny.
I think it's awesome too, like, because it's not like, you know, I don't even remember how that came up, like, but I was like, are you serious? Like, are you serious? Like, you're not messing around? They're like, no, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay, let's talk about this.
Yep.
It's awesome.
Yeah, to your point, Dean, it does make a huge difference when you can connect with someone on a very different level. Because, as you talked about, when you start building those relationships, it becomes easier to communicate with those people, because when you've built the relationship, you start always assuming good intent. And when somebody doesn't have to write a massive dissertation with just the right language to make sure they don't piss you off, they can communicate in short bursts and you don't take it the wrong way, because you know you have that relationship, and it just speeds things along. And what fascinates me is the people who don't understand that.
Right.
Which we have had a few that have been on the project and have left, and there's still some that are there that absolutely that thing goes right over their head.
The funny thing is they could participate and they just choose not to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's maybe because they're all business, and that's kind of the trap, isn't it? You know, that we all everyone wants to do the best job they possibly can, right? Everyone's working hard. Can we learn some? Yes, you know, but then there's some people that it is all business. And when it's all business, there's no fun. And when there's no fun, then the relationship is really just, okay, stale. There's no personality to the relationship. You know what I mean? If I know someone's all business, I'm kind of, in some ways, feeling like I can't joke around with them. You know, they're taking themselves so seriously, then they're always taking me seriously. And then I can't. If you can joke with someone, you can sometimes get away with making a joke at their expense, you know, or you're a little more likely to take criticism from someone you can joke with too. I feel. I mean, I know I am. If someone's joking, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. I should have did that. You know, I can take it a little bit more. Where if it's someone that's always serious, I'm taking it like this is a personal attack a little bit more. You know what I mean? I mean, I try not to do that, but I think that when you have a softer side to that relationship, it can't be misinterpreted as a personal attack as easy.
Well, this place is odd because, so I've run into that. There were people that I ran into that were all business. They didn't want to they didn't really want to have any fun. They definitely didn't want to have fun on my terms. They wanted to have fun on their terms, which was very stale and not fun.
Right.
There were some people that tried, but it was weird. And I don't know exactly why. Like, so there were definitely some people that we could have fun. It was very organic and it was fine. But then there was one in particular where, you know, they were, I don't know that they had a persona, but they were being authentic with some of the things that they liked that we just happened upon. But it wasn't like fully there. So they would participate in the fun, but it still felt off, if that makes sense.
Okay, so, and when you're saying persona, in this case, personas to some degree feel like there's some degree of disingenuousness, I think.
Yeah, you're changing.
You know what I mean?
You're changing your default style to be something else.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And disingenuous kind of seems like a mean word, but I mean,
right.
But you're putting on airs, is what they used to say, right?
Yeah, or a mask or something.
Yeah, where sometimes it might just be that they don't have the same sense of humor. You know, people do connect differently on certain things. You know, I know my sense of humor is not the same as my brother's sense of humor. We get along great, but sometimes his sense of humor just rubs me the wrong way, and I ain't the only one. But I've lived with him. I've known him for 50 years, so it's fine. But someone else who might meet him the first time, he comes across as abrasive to them. So sometimes sense of humors don't always match up, and then that kind of, if you got one fly in the punch bowl, the rest of it doesn't kind of swirl properly. You know what I mean? That's a really poor made up analogy, but that's kind of what I'm thinking, is that there's something in there that kind of throws everything else off. I don't know.
And it's definitely helpful to have people that will play ball with you. Like, yeah. So I think back to when we were together, I tell people still, I'm like, even some of the more difficult people, I still give them credit for letting me experiment on them and then playing the game, even for their short attention span they had. Just the fact that they like put up with it for 5 minutes, I'm like, that's very nice of you to do that and humor me. But what I liked was Dean, so I'd have fun, but then you would just come out of left field sometimes and just up it even more to we're already doing something that's goofy. That one status report that you did.
My videos?
Yes.
Oh. And I don't even know where that came from.
So awesome.
The whole room.
And I wasn't even there when it was delivered.
I've never seen that room. Everyone was wrapped with attention. Usually 80% of the people are like, or they're, checking their email. Everybody was glued to the screen. It was.
We did it last. Brilliant. I saved that one for last for that reason too.
And I think, didn't I send it to you in advance? I was like, okay, yeah. I don't know, is this appropriate? And you're like, oh, I think I wet myself. This is awesome. And I don't even know what possessed me to do that.
Isn't that the one where you said yeet?
Yeah. You were playing. You were like different people
trying to be a gamer,
giving the different. Oh yeah, you were like a live streamer. That's what it was.
Right. Yeah.
Oh man, that was brilliant.
And the thing is, I did that in one night, and I don't know what possessed me to do it. Maybe it's because I wasn't the one giving those reports normally, and I thought, this is my big chance.
I think
star.
You weren't gonna be there. You were gonna be.
I knew I wasn't gonna be there. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think you'd come up. I think maybe you'd asked if you could do video, and I'm like, yeah, just send it over. And then I
think also was not going to be there as well, and he was the one that normally did it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, he's going to be out of the country, I think it was, and I'm like, well, I'll do it, but I can't be there. Hey, video. And then I was like, well, if it's going to be video.
Heads up, Ethan. We're going to do a short interlude here while I remind you that there's some editing to do back there about a minute ago.
I'm making a note. I got to make a note about it.
Yeah.
Is it the names?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Let's see here.
Was it the name I said?
Yeah.
There were two names in there.
Okay.
That's okay.
It's all right.
Every once in a while it happens, and like
Right.
there was something Ethan said. Like
I
this
said
was,
that
like,
I said the name of the company.
yeah,
Oh, okay. Oh, that one.
and like I had to stop
Yeah.
and go, hey, we need to.
And I know the name I gave was probably a little too specific. Like that one is just not an average like Joe or Fred name.
Right.
So
But even if anybody somehow listened to it and they knew it was a reference to them, we try to
yeah,
avoid.
we have to take that out.
Yeah, that's why I haven't been editing and posting lately. Is because that one's coming up, but I don't know which one it is, which means I have to listen to all of them till I find it all the way through.
Right.
Speaking of references to people, Dean, I don't know how many episodes you've ever listened to, but have you heard the ones where we talk about you?
I have not heard those. I listened. I do want to. I'm going to go back and listen to them.
Yeah.
Because what I think so. My son was asking about this podcast, and I gave him the name, and then my daughter was over looking at his shoulders, and she's like, "There's like 30 some episodes out here," and I'm like, "I know I listened for sure to the first 12 or so, enough to know, hey, that's pretty good." You know. I also learned, I don't know that I could do on myself. I think guesting is probably where my sweet spot would be. You know what I mean? Because it seems like it's a lot of work. It's a regular occurrence type of thing. How do you come up with that much to say? You know what I mean? But you guys do it. So
Well, I don't know.
We've
I would say Ethan does all the work. I show up, have a few beers, and just talk about whatever. That I can do.
and that's the point. Like it's supposed to be easy. So like
right.
the half into that's why I'm dreading like and I'm not doing the editing is because that's counter. We're supposed to. We either got to get comfortable with saying names,
Right.
or we have to be super good about not.
Right.
So that we can then just do the quick edit and then get it posted. That was the goal, is that it would be quick, and
Right.
we just post it, not a lot of editing.
Right.
But we've tried. Some of them, I remember we've recorded some that were just, they didn't feel good. I think the most recent one that got released, I think episode 35. Whenever this one sees the light of day, like heads up, that one was done at a different time on a different day. And
Oh.
some people may have been in their work mode. So it was a little weird.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And it wasn't fair to them because they were actually doing it in between meetings. So that probably was, I think for me, I learned we're not doing that anymore.
Right.
But the other thing that happens, Dean, is sometimes we show up and somebody just says, basically, holy crap, this happened to me today. I want to talk about this on a
Right.
more broad scale and raise this issue.
Yeah.
So,
That's
so
cool.
there's an episode where I talk about how you got mad at me.
Yes.
Oh, me?
Yes.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yes.
And now I'm going to go watch it
Yes.
because I didn't even remember it.
And it's definitely related to, I think I was talking about one of my flaws,
Yes.
and that's how it came up.
Yep. That's
Yep.
exactly what it was.
So,
Yep.
so did I apologize to you for that time that I got mad at you?
No, and I've been harboring resentment ever since.
I
I think, yeah, what I took
I
from
just
that
gotta
was
say I
that
apologize. I'm so sorry. Sorry I hurt your
there
feelings,
is-
my friend.
There is zero need to apologize.
Yeah, honestly, then I must not have even known. Did I not know, or did I just not care? Because I'm a jackhole like that sometimes too.
no, Steve thought he was in the wrong. That's where he was talking about the
Oh.
flaw. He's like, I really realized that this was like a thing that I do when this interaction happened with you
Oh,
specifically. So it
Wow.
was more about Steve recognizing that he has a tendency to do this sometimes.
Yeah.
you complete me.
I can't recall a time when I've ever been mad at my spirit animal, Dean.
I'm trying to think. I know there's a couple times I've said stuff to you where I've actually had to say, you know what, I gotta apologize about this. I can't remember what they are though. See, I guess they were really meaningful apologies.
Yeah,
Like,
actually, I think you have done that. There was one time where
I think I
do
lied
remember-
or something like that, or I misstated something.
No, I remember you. I think you felt badly because you didn't think you gave me credit for something, and I was like, I don't care.
Yeah, that's usually the way my apologies with you go. It's like,
Yeah.
what are you talking
However-
about?
However, what's very interesting about that is, which is a great topic, is if you ever like basically plagiarize somebody or don't give credit to somebody and you take
Idea
the idea
grabbing?
as your own, which I think often happens, I think, to everyone, where sometimes somebody says something and you kind of disagree with it, and then later it rattles around in your head for a long time, and then you're like, hey, I think this is a really good idea that I just had when it was Dean that said it or Ethan that said it, and all of a sudden I'm like, no, this is what I think.
Right.
But I think it's very interesting which has happened a couple of times, I'm sure it's happened in your careers, where you're talking to someone and that person says, oh, I was talking to Fred and Fred said this, and you're like, wait a minute, I said that to Fred last week. That seems weird.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a fine line with that, because like, as the job we do, sometimes that's all you can do for influence. So you really want that to be the end result. I really want this to get done, and it's never going to happen if it comes from me. But if I can get so and so to think that this is a great idea, then change occurs.
Gently coaching someone into the decision they should make.
Exactly. So there's a fine line between that whole idea grab. Some people are just blatant about it, and then maybe you get a little torqued, but I've kind of learned to let those things go, because people that are honorable are going to give you credit. And if they're not honorable and not going to give you credit, that ain't their only flaw.
Yeah.
You see that coming a mile away, and
Mhm.
you just learn to take it or go someplace else.
Yeah, and I think you have to be comfortable not getting credit
Yeah, I
too,
agree.
for both those reasons. I think, and one of the bigger ones being that because I like, my favorite interactions are where I convince someone face to face that it's their idea. Like,
Where
that's-
you can see the
that's my
Vulcan mind trick
favorite.
occurring.
Yeah, because like you say the thing, right, and then they can't understand the thing because of paradigm paralysis. Physically they can't hear it, they can't understand it, and then you go into this mode where you're like, okay, what's the path to try and convince them that this is the thing we need to do? And it's this like slow, arduous breaking down everything that they know. And I remember one time, I was just like, oh, this is the very end of the conversation, but I'm like, I see this being a problem. Like, what do you think we should do about it? Even though I knew exactly what we should do about it and had already said it. But it took like 45 minutes to get to that point where they were accepting of, this is the problem, and then how are we going to solve that problem?
45 minutes is a quick scenario for some of the people we're dealing with right now. I'm just going to say. Like, we've been working months on some of this stuff. Probably not having the right technique, but months is, dang, that's a long, dry road.
Well, you guys are also like, so the last town, if you look at the last place, the last town. I said town because of the nickname that Steve
Yes,
gave.
I know.
Yeah, right.
I know. I knew where you were going with that.
I was going to say, you're on the road, Ethan. I don't know.
The last place we were at, and then the new place that we're at. So the last place we were at the tail end of their culture being shifted, and all of the nonsense, it was like a 5-year process or longer. We were at the very end of that, and we had all these conditions, bringing in new people, bringing in good leaders, bringing in good people to make it happen. So a 45-minute conversation was better. At this place, you're at the beginning of that. Like you have like 2 or 3 good people in leadership positions to try and weed out all that stuff that's going on there.
I do think there's hope on the horizon. That's actually why, but I don't know if you heard, but I was supposed to be done at the end of this month, and I actually chose to extend, which was a hard decision for me.
Yep.
And yeah, Steve was working his puppeteer magic in the background.
Actually, did I tell you what I wrote to our mutual manager?
No. Did you
You
thank
go-
her?
You go ahead and tell your story, and then I will look up this so I can read it verbatim.
Right. So for me, the person that I reported to before and have for the past 2 years left a couple months ago, and it took them a while to get the new person in, and the new person's in, and the new person is a change agent. It's someone, and it remains to be seen whether they're going to be successful or not.
Right.
But enough to say, okay, just like Dumb and Dumber, so you're saying there's a chance. I kind of feel like there is a chance now, because that person's boss is, less than 6 months, and he is also a change agent. And then this new person is even more so. And he's got a lot of ideas that he's very disruptive, which can be unnerving, because some of it throws me out of my comfort zone. But in the same breath, he's also has the attitude of experimentation. Hey, let's try this. I've seen this done before. He's clearly knowledgeable. Let's try this. And if we fail fast, and then we try something else. And I'm like, well, okay, that's a game I can play. I'm fine with that. And it's also an opportunity where they're doing a big structural shift on one side of their organization that they haven't had in place, that ties in right with some experts that are at the company that we work for. So both of those, I think, are learning opportunities for me, but then also in turn other people. So like you said, Ethan, they're on the cusp of starting the change. That's the evidence to me for that exact fact.
Yeah.
And that's what enticed me to stay.
Yeah. I mean, I could tell the person whose boss it is, that is the reason they were brought in. Like, I think a bunch of us knew that.
Yeah.
But it's, some of us look at it, and we had a whole bunch of other stuff go on there. I wouldn't have been there much longer anyway because of what happened. But I didn't do anything wrong. It wasn't me. The company made a decision to stop.
Yeah, that was a weird decision, but it was clearly a company decision.
Because of what happened. They just cut it there.
They kind of made it sound like an HR issue or something.
I did.
I'm like,
I did.
You too?
You need to go back and edit that and insert like 10 seconds of silence.
Right.
By the way, the new person you're talking about, Dean, also actually registers on the EQ meter, whereas his predecessor never did. Yeah. Okay, so what our mutual manager wrote was.
You want me to cut it?
I think Dean.
You want me to cut it, or do you want to keep this in?
No, we can keep this in. Well,
okay.
You can decide afterwards.
Okay.
I think Dean is going to stay on at the client for a bit longer. Here's what I wrote. The satanic rituals I have been conducting by burning pentagrams in my yard and modeling a Dean voodoo doll has finally paid off. Apparently, she has shared that quote with others, and everyone thinks it's hilarious.
That's funny.
If you can do stuff like that, so unflappable, that's a word that other people in our organization know because of that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, well, I'd like to pivot away from this.
Yes.
Oh, I don't know if you know that one, Dean. That's an episode we did where I loathe the word pivot.
No, that one's out. It was either.
Yeah, I think I saw that.
I know it's
I
out
heard that
because
one.
one of our listeners started throwing that word at me, and I'm listening. What? And then I get the devil look at me like, haha, messing with you.
So are you now for the end of the year with Steve? You guys are going to be the same.
I haven't heard whether it's a 3 month or 6 month. I haven't heard that for sure. Because one person I talked to says 6 month, another person I talked to says 3 month, but so I'd say minimum 3. If this change is going to happen, oh yeah, it ain't going to be done in 3.
No.
Then it'll be for sure 6 or longer, potentially. Which I'm a little hesitant to stay longer than 2 years at a given gig, just because I feel like well, how much more are you learning? You know, I mean, that's the industry we're in, or the type of business we're in. Variety is kind of what you want, you know, different challenges and stuff like that. But if you're getting a different challenge at the place you're at the client you're at, then you're fine. You know, so
Yeah, that's like that's one of the things I noticed is the places that I've stayed the longest, there was lots of change, lots of things that was going on. It was different, like every 6 months or so.
Yeah.
So